Now, even before she set foot inside Number 10, Theresa May said that she wanted to improve equality between workers and bosses. She'll set out her plans in more detail next week, but from what we know, it so far sounds rather reminiscent of Labour policies launched by Ed Miliband. Well, in a few minutes, I'll be speaking to the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, but I'm joined now by Damian Green, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Hello to you.
Good morning.
Before we start talking about Theresa May's crackdown on executive pay, I'm keen to get your thoughts on the news that the FA is to be launching a review into these allegations of abuse in football. Something you welcome?
I do. I hope the football authorities have learnt what other institutions have learnt, and far too many have been affected by this sort of terrible scourge of child abuse, is that transparency and investigation and finding the facts is really important, that anyone who tries to brush this aside, that's just wrong. There are too many instances that we've seen in the BBC with Jimmy Savile, in the churches and so on, that let's get to the facts.
Thank you. Let's talk now about the policy announcement from Theresa May, this crackdown on inequality between the pay of workers and their bosses. At a time when the UK is about to leave the European Union, should we not be trying to make the UK as business-friendly as possible?
Well, and we are, and successfully so. We've seen in the last couple of weeks a huge raft of international companies who can put their business and business HQs anywhere, saying that they want to expand in Britain. Google, Apple, Facebook, Jaguar Land Rover, who are owned by the Indian group Tata. So absolutely Britain is and needs to remain business friendly. But what the proposals that will come out in the Green Paper are about are making sure that people have faith in the capitalist system, that they can see that it is working for everyone and not just a privileged few. And that's why the idea of publishing the gap between the highest paid person in the company and the average earnings in that company is so important. So it feels that everyone working for a company can feel that they're participating in the success of that company.
Are these reforms slightly toothless, though? You're asking people to publish the pay. You're also saying that workers can be in the room when pay is discussed. But do they have any block if they're really unhappy by the idea that some of the executives or the fat cats are getting too much?
Well, one of the other proposals which we'll be consulting on in the Green Paper is to allow shareholders to have a mandatory vote.
But will workers be involved in that, or is it just company shareholders?
Well, in the end, it's the shareholders that own the company, so it's their company. It's not the senior manager's company. That's the legal position. And often the problem in the past has been that the shareholders haven't had the power, or in some cases the inclination, actually to protest or to say, look, we don't find this acceptable. So this will give the power to the shareholders. But I think it will be important to have a voice in the room, as you say, in the remuneration committee, the committee that decides the pay of the top people in a company, to have the workers represented there, to, if only to make the point of now we have transparency, now we'd have the facts of what the difference in pay is between the top and the middle of the company, that will have some force.
It sounds an awful lot like some of the things that Ed Miliband was suggesting at the last general election, policies that the Conservatives derided as being anti-business. I'm just looking at some of the 2015 Labour election manifesto, where it says that there should be employee representatives on remuneration committees, and that the pay ratio should also be published between the highest paid and the average in the company. Are you just nicking Ed Miliband's policies?
Well, I mean, there are slight differences, but if the Labour Party wants to support this, then fine.
So why didn't you support Ed Miliband when he was suggesting?
As I say, our proposals are slightly different, but I think we've seen around the world. I think there's a really serious issue here, that a lot of the protest votes, if you like, that we've seen in various countries around the world are about people losing faith in the thought that what most people in this country, maybe not Jeremy Corbyn, but most people have believed that a sort of liberal capitalist system not only creates more wealth, but helps spread more wealth. That's the argument that was won back in the 1980s. And it's clear that we need to win that argument again. And to do that, we need to make as sure as possible that everyone benefits from the system and that they can see that it's fair. So this is squarely in line with what Theresa May said on the steps of Downing Street when she first became Prime Minister.
So is that your lesson from Donald Trump's victory in America then, that you need to prove again to people that capitalism works.
Well, not just that, but I mean, clearly a lot of what lay behind the Brexit vote in this country was people feeling dissatisfied with the system more generally, and we've seen it in other European countries as well. So I think making clear that capitalism works for everyone and not just the people at the top is a very, very important project for this government.
Let's talk about the autumn statement. In the space of a few minutes, Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, raising the national debt more than Gordon Brown did in his whole chancellorship. The Conservative Party now, the party who can't be trusted with the economy?
Well, no, because we are bearing down on the deficit. We're not doing it as quickly as we originally thought we could because of various uncertainties.
George Osborne's austerity
and
programme has been ripped up, effectively.
Well, it's not been ripped up. No, we're still on a steady downward trajectory. We're not going to hit, if you like, the end of deficits by 2020, but we'll do so in the course of the next Parliament. And any Chancellor faced with a very uncertain situation around the world will want to make a sensible balance between continuing to bear down so that we live within our means, but also finding the money for the essential things that will keep Britain open for business, keep Britain attractive internationally, hence the 23 billion fund for productivity improvement, which will include a lot of road schemes, but also a lot of other kinds of infrastructure like more modern broadband and so on, the things that make us an attractive country to do business, which allow us to create the jobs. We have a historically very good level of employment.
One of the areas that soaks up a huge amount of public money is pensions. Can you guarantee that the triple lock is here to stay for the next Parliament?
Well, I can guarantee it's here to stay for this Parliament, because that's the only sensible guarantee any politician can make. We had it in our manifesto, that and other benefits for pensioners, and we will stick to that. We will stick to our manifesto commitments. It's too early sitting here in 2016 to write the 2020 Conservative manifesto, so that would all have to be decided in future years, but it is absolutely here for this Parliament.
Do you think that it's a bit of a tempting amount of money for the Chancellors to have a look at and think, hang on, there is something that we could squeeze?
Well, I think, oddly enough, I think the idea that if you look at a deficit now and say end the triple lock, that wouldn't make any difference, because it's money looking further out that you're spending, that people are considering. But I think a lot of the debate on the triple lock is slightly simplistic, because one of the things that's happened in this country that we haven't noticed and should do, because it's very good, and this is a non-partisan point, it's taken place over the last 30 years, is the reduction in pensioner poverty. In the 1980s, 40% of our pensioners were living in poverty. We've got that figure down now to 14%, and I think that's a huge beneficial social advance in this country.
Potentially partly because the deficit's been reduced on the back of younger people as opposed to older people.
I absolutely take the point about intergenerational fairness, but let's pause and look at what we've done for people to allow them to have a more dignified old age, and not do anything that puts that at risk.
A quick thought on Brexit. It's, of course, the issue that is looming large over this Parliament. I know that the government doesn't want to give us what they call a running commentary, but I wonder where you'd position yourself on things such as the single market debate. If you have Philip Hammond potentially arguing in favour of access to the single market, and others like Liam Fox saying that we need to be prioritising trade deals, where would you put yourself on that spectrum?
I think the problem with the debate is that it's often binary, that you're either pro-single market or let's get out altogether. You're pro the customs union or let's get out altogether. And as the government, as we're working through the individual problems, they're not as black and white as that. They're not as binary as that. There are elements that are beneficial to us, both of the single market and of the customs union. And we're looking at whether you can actually keep, obviously we want to keep as many of the advantages as possible, while at the same time allowing us to have control over our own borders. That's the debate that we're having internally. But the idea that it's black and white, that you're in and out of these different bits of the institutions, it's I'm afraid more complex.
But is that realistic, that you can have a pick and mix approach, particularly at a time when, with elections looming next year in Europe, people are going to want to show that you can't simply have your cake and eat it? Well,
of course we're at the pre-negotiation stage now, where people will issue tough statements, and as you say, particularly with elections coming up next year. But I think there is a sensible negotiation to be had, which will be as beneficial as possible to Britain and as beneficial as possible to the other members of the European Union. Clearly, in any negotiation, both sides need to get something. But if you talk to European businesses in particular, they want as little disruption as possible. And so I would hope that the political leaders in other countries will be listening to their own businesses, because there are many businesses that have supply chains across many different European countries, including this one.
I'm interested as well, on the back really of Theresa May's quite revealing interview that she's given to the Sunday Times, clearly trying to show the public a bit more of who she is as a person. Now, I think I'm right in saying that you're her oldest friend around the cabinet table. Can you give us a bit of a sense of what gets Theresa May out of bed in the morning? What was she like at university?
People constantly ask me, what's Theresa really like? To which my answer is always the same, which is what you see is what you get. She and was true of her when she was a student as well. She's a hard-working, conscientious, serious-minded, but also good fun to be with. There is no sort of hidden Theresa May that the public doesn't know about. There are clearly details, and Theresa can talk about them. But
and she's also talked about her husband, Philip May, in this interview too, even saying that he helps her choose her outfits. At university, did you ever think Philip May was the one more likely to go on to be Prime Minister, or was it always clear that it would be Theresa?
They're both. I mean, they were both they were friends of mine for a long time, and they're both very talented. I'm sure if Philip had wanted to have a career in politics, he would have been extremely successful. But I assume they took the sensible decision that one politician in a family was probably enough, and that they'd go into different spheres. And Philip is extremely successful in business.
Damian Green, thank you.
Thank you.